Greetings, thank you for lending an ear to the Voice of the Times for Wednesday, March 9, 2022. Brought to you by Welcome Depot, the country's leading home improvement and construction supplies retailer. Shop conveniently 24/7 with Welcome Online Store. Just go to shop.welcome.com.ph. For today's editorial, Russian sanctions demand increase in oil production. The economic sanctions imposed by Western countries on Russia in response to the brutal invasion of Ukraine are having a significant negative impact. But even this early, there is a growing sense that they will be ineffective in actually stopping the war. Fortunately, there is an obvious solution. But the challenge is getting the US and its key allies, such as Germany, to accept and follow through with it. The sanctions are flawed because they have been carefully designed to avoid hindering Russia's ability to continue selling its abundant oil and gas supplies. Russia is the world's second largest petroleum producer to the rest of the world. European countries are particularly sensitive because they rely on Russia for somewhere between one-third and one-half of their energy needs. Vladimir Putin's unprovoked attack on Ukraine did result in the high-profile suspension of the planned Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline connecting Russia and Germany. But otherwise, the flow of oil and gas has been largely unhindered, even through pipelines passing through the active war zone in Ukraine. However, the start of the war and the imposition of sanctions, even though this did not substantially impact Russia's petroleum production and deliveries, had the effect of causing world petroleum prices to skyrocket. We are already all too familiar with that unwelcome effect here in the Philippines, even though it is fair to say that the Philippines has virtually no practical stake in the war in Eastern Europe. The high fuel prices for everyone around the world puts the sustainability of sanctions at risk because there is good reason to worry that countries that are on board with them now will not be able to absorb the punishment to their own economies for long. At the same time, the high oil prices and the careful avoidance of imposing sanctions on the part of Russia's economy has simply played into Vladimir Putin's hands. The other sanctions on Russia are creating serious problems, but the bonanza in earnings from oil and gas production, although those earnings are currently more difficult to collect, makes it possible for Russia to withstand the effects of being otherwise economically isolated. The clear objective of sanctions is to make it so economically and politically destructive for Russia that it is forced to stop its invasion of Ukraine and withdraw, while at the same time minimizing collateral damage to the rest of the world's economy. Achieving one part of the objective without the other is unacceptable. As things stand now, the current sanctions may not achieve either. We believe the solution already put forward by many analysts and experts is the correct course of action and should be implemented immediately. First, the Western leadership should provide price relief to the rest of the world and undercut the unintended advantage Russia is enjoying by encouraging a massive increase in petroleum production elsewhere. Second, with alternatives to supplies from Russia made available in that manner, the sanctions should be extended to cut Russia off from the world market. The US is the world's largest petroleum producer, and so can lead the effort by ramping up its own production. In addition, the US and its allies can work with the OPEC nations and Iran to encourage more production on their part. Iran has long been isolated from the most of the world market due to sanctions related to its nuclear program, but some accommodations can be made for the sake of a larger goal. Venezuela, which is also an OPEC member and a large-scale petroleum producer, should be an exception to these efforts. However, Venezuela, which has been prevented from selling its oil due to sanctions against its brutal leftist regime, is one of only 5 countries. The others are Belarus, North Korea, Eritrea, and Cuba to openly support Russia's invasion and thus should not be rewarded for it by even a temporary easing of its sanctions. If, however, the rest of the petroleum producing world can cooperate, Venezuela's participation in the effort to bring Russia to heel and protect the world economy should not be necessary. And that's the editorial for Wednesday, March 9, 2022. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and listen to the voice of the Times.